This country, under this APC regime, came to become the poverty capital of the world. It became the place where the minimum wage became the miserable wage for workers.
But if you think about Nigeria itself, it's an open prison.
You haven't seen anything yet. They are planning to increase fuel prices to 1,500 for now. The value of the Naira will reach 2,000 Naira to $1 before the end of the year.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Mainland 98.3 FM. It's the Situation Room, and I want to trust you had a good weekend. It's Monday at the first edition of the show for the week. Today is the 16th day of the month of September 2024, and I want to specially welcome you to this special edition of the show today. It's special because I have arguably the most talked about Nigerian as we speak, live in the studio of Mainland 98.3 FM, and I'm going to explain why he's the most talked about. Yesterday morning I was in church, and I saw the links to the story that so person was picked up, his document was seized, he was that, and I just told myself, I said, no, it's going to be a long ride from here. But I want to also believe you had a good weekend. Yeah, I did. I mean, I had to make some quick trip out of Lagos, came back, but we're here right now. Today is Monday. I'm always super excited to have you join us on the show. I will get to do this from Mondays to Fridays, 4 to 5:30 p.m. every single day of those times. And don't forget also that this is not the only space where we have these conversations around leadership, governance, politics, policies, and politricks itself. I will always start from Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. on Political Roundtable. On Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. it's midweek politics, and on Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. it is Voices from the Top, and of course this one right here, the Situation Room, from 4 to 5:30 every single day. Once again, you're welcome. We're streaming this program live, so you can go on all our social media platforms, beginning from facebook.com/mainland98.3 FM, on X, formerly Twitter, it's Mainland FM, on Instagram and YouTube, where we're also streaming, it is Mainland98.3 FM. So let's get into the conversation. But first off, how have you been coping? It's been tough. I was having a conversation with a friend on Saturday, and I said about 18 months ago I would buy 10 liters of petrol for 1,800 Naira. But now, yesterday when I was coming into Lagos, I decided to do a little top up, and I could get 15 liters for 16,500. That at the rate of 1,100 Naira per liter is tough. And you know what that means. Every single thing in the market is affected one way or the other. My name is Omoyele Sowore, and it's my pleasure to have you join us on the show again today. I have the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in the 2019 and the 2023 presidential election in Nigeria, and also the convener of Take It Back movement in Nigeria. It is no other person than Comrade Omoyele Sowore, live in the studio of Mainland FM, to have a conversation around free press, rights to protest, and democracy in Nigeria. Comrade, it's my pleasure to have you join us on the show again today.
Thank you for bringing me.
It's always a pleasure.
Good afternoon to everyone.
A few weeks ago, yes, I was going through a document, and I saw on the 27th of December 1993, you were the cover page or the front page of African Guardian newspaper, and it was in one of those very big pictures of you raising your fist, asking for freedom, asking for thorough democracy in every single space of it. Comrade Omoyele Sowore, it's over 30 years that picture was made. We're here again today. You came into the country yesterday morning, and the news that filtered everywhere was that, and you also made the post, you were detained immediately and your traveling document checked. For someone that had been at the forefront of almost every single movement around democracy, free press, freedom, free speech in Nigeria, when you came in yesterday and you had that little ordeal, where did it take you back to? Remember, you had a city restriction for more than 4 years when you couldn't leave the FCT because of the case you had. And then that happened yesterday morning. What did it trigger on you, and how did it make you feel?
Nothing special, because I do not feel like I'm special. If you live in a country where oppression has become a norm, you should expect anything to happen to anybody at any time. So, and this is not the first time I was pulled out, or my documents were confiscated, or I was asked to come for secondary inspection as they're supposed to be. It's supposed to be. But yesterday was the first time that I was getting into the country, and based on information that had been available to me and published, I knew that we're going to have that situation, and I prepared myself for it. But I've been on the Nigerian security watch list, meaning that I've been a security threat to those in power since 1992. You're talking about 1993. But the first time I came to the attention of the Nigerian state security services was 1992, when we had a protest known as Babangida Moscow. And guess where we had it? Ikorodu Road was one of the places.
This same place you are at today.
So it was I was leading with Odion Sylvester Ken, who is now a lecturer at Lagos State University. A column from Bariga, and we came from Oworonshoki, and came and joined another group at just beside you here at Atoni, and we went down Ikorodu Road, and by the time we got to Ojuelegba, we were confronted by the police, and some of us were arrested and beaten, tortured, and they came and presented to us police statements and asked us to write that we're planning to overthrow the government. That was 1990. That was my first time coming in contact with the brutal nature of Nigerian state as a student. Prior to that, of course, I had other histories which has to do with the invasion of my village when I was 10 years old, which I've talked a lot about. So ever since then, we were told, but I didn't travel then. I didn't travel until 1999 that our names were distributed across the country. The leader of the National Association of Nigerian Students, then Olusegun Mayegu, Barrister Femi Falana, and now SAM, I think Baba Omojola, and I think Ghanaian was involved. I'm not sure Ghanaian for him. Bekor and Sonkuti, all of them were arrested and taken to Kuje prison, and they were presented before the Kuje Magistrates Court and accused of trying to overthrow the government. They were charged for treason, 1992. But we weren't arrested because they had beaten us enough in Lagos. But
so the arrest was not necessary.
It was not necessary. They went to our hostels. They beat the heebie-jeebies out of us. You know, they molested female students, and that was the year I was first expelled from the University of Lagos. And they expelled all of us. It was known as the Unilag 47 at that time, and we went to court and tried to get ourselves readmitted through the court. The court said no. It was one Justice Cashington, who used to be a prosecutor for the federal government, Lagos State DPP, I think Director of Public Prosecution, who was the judge at that time. He ridiculed us. One of the things he said Mayegun should go and cut his dreadlocks before he can come to his courtroom. But it was one Justice Taiwo as a magistrate then, who presided over that case, and I think he threw out the case. Guess what? In 2019, the same Justice Taiwo, now retired, was presented with a fake affidavit that I was trying to overthrow the government through Revolution Now, and he ordered my remand for 45 days. So you see how time has changed. So treason, I escaped in 1992.
You came back to meet it in 2019.
Yes. Yes.
Wow, I mean, thank you very much for taking us through that memory lane.
And I would like to have a copy of that African Guide here.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember it. You know, I was wearing, I think I have it on my Twitter.
Yes, I think so.
I was wearing the hat, and I was wearing a doctor's jacket, the white jacket that had turned black because we're busy burning tires on that day. So the jacket I was wearing, which was supposed to be white, had become ash black.
Comrade Sowore,
the picture was taken by late Peter Obe, almost journalist who was in Ojoe, who was staying in Surulere.
I had a conversation with you as a build-up to the End Bad Governance protest of 1st to 10th of August. And then one of the things you talked about is the fact that the government needs to listen to the people. And after that particular protest, Professor Wole Soyinka also gave an address where he talked about the fact that the government, by the way, the president, who happened to be a friend to Prof, Prof talked about the fact that the main issues raised by the End Bad Governance protesters was not addressed. Rather, it was a case of a child asking for bread and you're showing him bullets. Now, 10 of those protesters, or 10 out of all of those protesters, I also remember I had a session with Dijade Onju, and he told me that, there were about 80 protesters that have been arrested in Abuja. They're trying to secure them.
Protesters arrested across Nigeria.
10 out of them were, charged to court, and the conversation around treasonable felony was put on the table.
It wasn't treasonable felony, it was treason.
Treason.
Which is a capital offense.
Good.
It attracts a death penalty.
Good. Now, for a government being headed by an individual that could go on record as one of those that participated in the highest number of protests in this country against the military. Even remember when this conversation started, I played an audio for you. That was the then Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, now president, in 2012 during the end Occupy Nigeria protest in Lagos here. That was what he said against the then ruling party while they were in the opposition, the ACN. The conversation around free speech and protest in this country, that the constitution allows, section 42 of the Nigerian constitution spells it out very clearly. The procedure to get into the protest, the fact that the police had to even protect the protesters rather than arrest them. When you got into this conversation, whether 92, 93, the arrest, was this what democracy meant to you, or was this the picture of what democracy was supposed to be right now?
Well, democracy for us meant the government of the people, by the people and for the people, or whichever way you arrange that definition. But we must be honest with ourselves. What we got in 1999 wasn't democracy. I have described it as morontocracy, and meaning it was government of morons, by morons, and for morons who hijacked power. And we had the dregs of our society have been empowered over this democratic period. Some of them were former military leaders, former kidnappers, drug dealers, people who were doing 419. And the kind of people that you and I were told by our parents when we were growing up not to be like, they are our leaders today. Yes. So you do not expect to get anything different. The guys who were cheating in the university, they cheated through the entire process from WAEC to university. They are the ones in power today. The ones who had no certificates, who forged one. They are the ones in power today. The ones who cannot tell you where they are born, raised, or fed, or bred. They are the ones in power today. So that's democracy. Democratic country doesn't produce that. But you look at the process that produced them also, which is the electoral process, completely compromised. So you cannot call this democracy. So, and the moment I realized, I was actually in Nigeria in 1999, a few months before the election, and I had an epiphany to leave, and I left to the US because the moment they presented Obasanjo as a candidate, in fact, my disillusionment came from when Abiola was still in detention. And these Nadeco guys were already negotiating with the military without visiting Abiola. They went to a meeting with the military and they were discussing with the Americans without seeing Abiola face to face. They were already negotiating away Abiola's mandate. Because what America wanted, the UN wanted, was for Abiola to renounce his mandate. And Abiola was like, over my dead body. And they took that literally to mean that they had to kill him. And they prepared for him a bongo tea when the Americans arrived in Abuja. He drank it and that was the last. And these Nadeco people, Tinubu and the rest of them, became the beneficiaries of his killing. And they couldn't even wait for him to be buried before they started this system that you call democracy today. I'm just stating this so that people will understand that people like us knew for a long time ago that this was, and I've always fought against this style of democratic rule because it wasn't democracy. I think 3 days ago, you follow me on Twitter. I have coined it to mean Orisacracy, which is government of rice by rice and for rules. You know, it's anything that happens to you now, they just send
There's rice.
You're sick, rice.
There's
There's
flooding,
flood,
rice.
No electricity, send them rice.
For scarcity?
Rice. And if the rice is not enough, just give 12 bags to the ministers, drag rice to them. That is how they see you, the people called Nigerians. Because in the first place, nobody participated in electing them. They're a product of a selective process that is masqueraded as election. And those of us who participate in these elections, we know it and we say it. I have said it publicly, and I think on this show, that the reason I participate in election is so that people will not have the illusion that without participation, we would have gotten what we wanted. It's just to expose the underbelly of what they call election. And I said it to those who are enthusiastic about the election in 2023. Even before the elections, that we had tested INEC. I was attending meetings with INEC, and INEC wasn't planning an election. Nigeria is the only country in the world where you are planning an election, somebody will go and change the color of the money so that there won't be money to do election. You know already, they know what they were doing. The INEC people said they are going to transmit election results live. Even if they didn't have any bad intentions, they had no capacity. The servers didn't have the capacity. And I was saying, I went to National Assembly to say the servers had no capacity to transmit elections. I've been dealing with websites since 2005. I've been running websites. And what is important is that you can have a great website, you can have great memory. But if you don't deal with a particular very small issue, which is the number of connections the website can handle at a particular time, you will not be able to run a website that can deal with traffic if you break a big story. So, and that's where caching comes from. But theirs was just they just went and bought some servers. And when the servers couldn't handle it, they maxed out. But they may also have tinkered with the server just so that it will not release results instantaneously as they were happening. So even their so-called machine that they put, it wasn't anything serious. It was just an Android that does only one thing. That's why they call it BVAS. It's bimodal. It's in offline and online mode. You can only be online if you have internet connection. So now someone can even compromise that by just switching off the internet.
That's all.
So, and the offline mode is the mode that carries all your information, and so it's all preloaded with voters' information. The online mode is when you finish, just like your phone, you take a picture of the final election results, and you press send. If there is no connection,
It's not going
it
anywhere.
doesn't send. It can keep looking for network until it gets it and send it. But all these things were handled by both incompetence and mischief to produce the results that you have today. But this is, I'm trying to explain that to you
Yeah, it's okay.
so that most Nigerians can understand how we got here. You're talking about, the man in power now, Tinubu, having fought for democracy. You'll be surprised, for those of us who fought for democracy, we knew there's a difference between fighting for democracy and fighting for power. They just wanted power. And in 2012, when he was speaking clearly that you played before we started, they were planning what we call protest to power. They used protest as a way of getting to power. And the moment they got power, because they knew that protest was how they got to power, their first target was to shut down the channel of protestation and criminalize it. It started with Buhari. That's what they did to me by charging me with treason. I was first accused of terrorism so that they could obtain a detention order from Taiwo. And then it was followed by treason, which was a death penalty. And they also accused me of cyber stalking, that I was cyber stalking Buhari personally. But they did not understand in a hurry, because we're not particularly smart people, that if you have to charge somebody for cyber stalking, the principal person that is being cyber stalked must come to court to testify. And Femi Falana, being the brilliant lawyer he was, said, can we find out when the president is willing to come to court to testify against Sowore.
That you were stalking him.
That was stalking him. Especially at the time that he said he has ear infections. How did he hear it? Does he read? Which internet website does he use? How did Sowore stalk him? Does he listen to the news? That was how they withdrew the cyber stalking part of the case. And then they also accused me of money laundering, that they saw me in Dubai picking up money from whomever they claimed was giving me money, $100 million. That was what part of the charges they sent to Taiwo to get the detention order. When we got to court, we said, well, can you present us evidence that Sowore has ever been to Dubai? Turns out, I've never been to Dubai. They withdrew that. And then downgraded my treason accusation to treasonable felony, which then attracts life imprisonment. And we said, fantastic, we are ready for trial. Because now we're in a position to put Nigerian state on trial. The DSS recruited a senior advocate of Nigeria, Lima. All right? And Lima brought 23 lawyers to court. We only had like 4, Falano, Inibehe. I think we had quite a number of lawyers, but we didn't have a whole array of them. And for all the period that they were trying the case, they only presented one witness, a DSS guy who claimed that he saw me at Maryland, mobilizing for protest. So effectively, he countered their charge. And that was the last day we had any trial in court. But knowing what they wanted, they had already gotten the judge to grant me bail on stringent conditions, including restriction to Abuja, that I should deposit 100 million Naira. And for 1 month, we couldn't meet the bail conditions because I'm not a thief to produce $100 million. So we went for variation of the bail before Justice Ijoma Ojukwu of the Federal High Court in Abuja. She was screaming that, how can you come and say that Sowore doesn't have 100 million Naira? Well, she reluctantly varied the bail to 50 million Naira that we should produce land documents of people who have landed properties in Abuja. So it took us another 1 month to meet those conditions. And I was released in her courtroom. I had to come back the next day. I didn't know they had planned it. I came into the court. As we were finishing the session of that court,
you picked up.
I wasn't picked up, I was kidnapped inside the courtroom by the DSS, armed DSS. The judge fled. Her wig was in the air. Her bodyguard was running and she was the one running after her. They'd never seen anything like that before. And that was what Buhari did to silence protests. And it is where he stopped that Tinubu has continued from. And in all fairness to him, he said one of the few things he said legibly during the campaign was that he will continue from where Buhari stopped. Every other thing was Bala Blue. Nobody else heard any other thing. And I think now, looking back, even the Bala Blue expression was deliberate to give the impression that somehow he was too tired and old. And it got some people sympathetic. So this is a scheme that was put together. And Nigerians have said it before, and I'm not saying it just to feel good. You haven't seen anything yet. They are planning to increase fuel prices to 1,500 for now. The value of the Naira will reach 2,000 Naira to $1 before the end of the year. That is if it doesn't by November. The minimum wage they promise will not be able to buy you a full tank of petrol, gasoline, or whatever you call it. And even that will not be paid because they haven't paid it since it was approved. Because of their friends in the NFC who are saying bosa to them for giving them a minimum wage that cannot take workers home from work in a week. Let's assume you're a Nigerian worker and you're earning 70,000 Naira per month. And you have a Toyota Corolla and the tank is filled with 16,000 Naira. Assuming that your job is just 3 miles away from your house, which is impossible if you're working for the federal government. How do you drive to work and back for a week and still have fuel left in your car? Are you not going to eat? Are you not going to buy medicine? If you are unlucky and you are getting electricity and they put you on band A, how are you going to pay your electricity bills? If you're unfortunate and you have children that are going to school, how do you buy them uniform, lunch? If your children or your child or son or daughter is going to university and you are lucky that it's University of Ibadan and the school fees is like 400,000 naira now, I don't know what it is, how are you going to pay one semester and still have money left? What if there is need for you to pay rent? Or even if you own your house and you don't have electricity, or even you have electricity, you need a generator. How do you buy fuel? How do you buy kerosene, which had been unsubsidized for as long as possible to cook? Or how do you buy gas? Then, how do you buy food? A bag of rice is now more than the minimum wage. So, I'm assuming that this person collecting minimum wage of 70,000 naira doesn't have children. If you do, you are damned. If you don't, you are screwed. That's where Nigeria is. But look at it. The same people who said you don't deserve a minimum wage more than 70,000 are earning maximum wage ad infinitum. Senate, if you're a senator in Nigeria, your monthly wage is 29 million naira. That is the bare bone of salary and allowances. And several of them have come out and confessed to this fact. If you're a member of the House of Rep, it's about 21 million naira or even more. Then you get a car for $150,000. Somebody is going to pay for the petrol that goes into the car, the gas guzzling cars that they buy for them because they are driving SUVs. To fill an SUV tank, now you are not going to spend less than 70,000 naira. And they are not going to be the ones paying for it. They probably have even a fuel depot somewhere or a fuel car to buy fuel. So the president bought a new jet. To fly a jet in and out of Nigeria on a daily basis, you are not spending less than $100,000. That is the presidential jet that Tinubu just bought. But he bought it for $150 million, well upgraded. I even heard that at the point, because they said the former jet doesn't have nice noise cancelling, this one they had to make it soundproof so that if you are in one section, the other section cannot hear you. I heard it had medical gadgets installed into it that cost millions of dollars in addition to its original cost. So you have 2 pilots for it. It has to be serviced, all kinds of checks, every year. If it's flying across nations and it has to be parked, some countries charge as much as $5,000 per night just to park a presidential jet. And they are not going to do it for you except exceptions where you are there for official reasons. But the type of personal vacation that has been taken in London after China, the country is going to be paying nothing less than £5,000 per night to park, because it's a jumbo jet. This is a passenger jet that should have been owned by the Nigerian Airways to be flying people to New York and back. We got it for one person. The Senate president, great time. This is the best time for the political class and the worst time for the people of Nigeria. 200 million of them. Apology to Agbaja, 200 million Momo people. And I'm not insulting Nigerians. It's just how you can describe where we are, considering that all the political office holders in Nigeria are not up to 10,000. And they are holding 200 million people to ransom. You got to be Momo. And as Charlie Boy used to say, Momo don't do.
Comrade Omoyele Sowore is live on Mainland FM, and this is the Situation Room. We got to do this every Mondays to Fridays from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And I had to really pull him out of a very busy schedule to be with us on the show today. And I'm really glad he's here with us. Let's take it back a bit to the End Bad Governance protest of 1st to 10th of December.
August.
August. Thank you very much. And there were a lot of fallout of such. In some states, there was no protest at all. In some states, it was relatively peaceful. In some states, the turnout was low. In some states, it was really violent. In Kaduna also, they had to declare curfew. There were a lot of issues left and right. And this has to be more like a reactionary incident where people felt like, you know what, we're being pushed to the wall, we have to respond, we have to react. Let's talk about how important it is for a country that is practicing democracy to encourage protests. And in my early days of getting into this job, one of the things my lecturer then used to tell me is that one of the pillars of any democracy in the world is free speech. The people cannot talk to the president one-on-one, but they can send a message to the president. But if you look at where it is right now, there are, signs of the media being gagged, protests left and right. Is this democracy under any threat, Comrade Omoyele Sowore?
Well, for democracy to be under threat, it has to be democracy first. We don't have a real democratic.
So what do we have? It's 25 years of uninterrupted democracy.
25 years of civilian rule does not translate to democracy. Yes, we have people who dress in civilian garbs in power, but they all have all the traits of dictators, emperors. Some of them are outright bandits, terrorists. You have lived through all of it as a media practitioner. You have to sit down here every every Monday to Friday, as you said, for as long as you've worked here or before you even got here, just analyzing and reanalyzing and discussing the issues that has come with our own brand of democracy. So what is under threat that is even bigger than democracy is the existence of Nigerians. And that is what is being threatened now, because you actually have to eat and live first before you can think of democracy. And I think that's why I say some of these things are being done are deliberate, so that people will be so cornered, distracted, and weighed down and burdened by all kinds of issues that they won't be able to even raise their heads to think about what is decent. And I have to tell you that the culture of decency has fled this country. And I think I said it earlier. If you look at what has become leadership in this country and the very wonky nature of it, you understand what I'm talking about. The people who are in power are not in power for the sake of the people. They're in power for the sake of empowerment of their own people or themselves. And that is why I cannot call this, and nobody should keep calling it democracy. And when you find yourself in a situation where you don't even understand the system or style of governance, you have to figure out a more drastic method of liberation. Because if you look at it, there is no terrible government in the world that doesn't have constitutional backing. Even apartheid was constitutionally backed. Yeah. So, but the people who are burdened by this system can bond together and say, look, enough is enough. We don't want to continue to suffer under the yoke of what we don't even understand. Even if this were to be democracy, it will give room for expansion of fundamental rights every day. It's well known that I lived in the US for a long time, and there's no day I go out that if you go out far enough, that people don't protest. They're still protesting every day. They're still complaining, even when they likely
a system that looks like it's working.
Yes, even if the roads are working, people will still go to court. In some places, people will sue their local government, which we call county, if they ran into any pothole on the road and their tire exploded. They will go to court. They'll get a lawyer to sue, and in most cases they win, because they will say, why didn't you fix the road? You're trying to get damages. And there are lawyers whose specialization is to pursue those things. People will sue you as a government if you have asbestos in your house and their children fall sick. People will sue you if they go to hospital and they stay for long and the emergency room people don't get to them and they die. They sue for medical malpractice. So an average doctor in the US, just using doctors for instance, can make money, but they also have to pay for what they call, medical insurance. So that if they engage in any malpractice that requires legal settlement, the insurance companies will pay. So that is leadership, but they still protest on a daily basis. They protest about their elections. As if you are monitoring U.S. electoral process, they are protesting every day that some people said people who are not supposed to vote have been registered to vote. They are using comb to look for, any irregularities within the electoral system, because they want to be in a position to accept the election results when it's over. They want it to be as clean as possible. I'm not in any way sitting down here defending that U.S. has perfect democracy. No. I'm just telling you what the global experience is that we don't have here. We just exist here, without, in all fairness, it's unfair to keep saying we have a government. We don't really have what is referred to as government everywhere else. We just have people with varied interests who just wake up and do whatever they want with people's resources and ask you to go FUCK yourself.
Comrade Sowore, let's come to you now. The whole conversation around election, your participation in election, being the presidential candidate of the AAC in 2019, in 2023, a lot of people have raised how they feel you should get involved in politics. So somebody say, you should go to the Senate, or you should go to your state, you should go to Ondo State and contest. I remember we had a conversation around the Ondo State, before the primaries, and when the late Akeredolu did not, hand over our government and all of that. But you've been involved in elections as a participant, as a comrade. What are we doing wrongly? Because a lot of people have come up with the fact that, one of our problems is how we select our leaders. We don't go through the normal route of doing things. The primaries, the involvement, our sentiment that even leads us to elect. I'm supporting him because he's my tribal man. I'm supporting him because he's my religious person. What are we doing wrongly that keeps taking us back to a step forward and about 200 steps backward? You talked about the fact that the process of 1999 was more selective than elective. 2003, it looks like we were in first same. We had a presidential election in this country where the beneficiary of the election came out to say that I don't want to participate in such an election that brought me into office. Then we came up with the whole, changing the Electoral Act, reviewing it and all of that. What are we doing wrongly with elections in this country that is affecting the choice of our leadership here?
We have to admit that we don't conduct elections here.
So what do we do?
Selection. Yes. Perfect selection. And it's been so perfected over time that even the people who are selecting think they are electing. That's the problem. And you find sometimes people defending that. It was like, we just had election, you lost. No, I didn't lose because there was no election. So you cannot tell me that I lost a match in which the referee already called off the match before it started. Or before as soon as they blew the whistle, he said, Manchester is 2-0. Arsenal is 0. And he says, why are we doing this? And the other side is protesting, and he says, go to court. And you go to court and the judges are like, produce evidence here. Where's the evidence? And you bring all the evidence. No, that is not the evidence we are looking for. But sir, Your Honor, or your whatever you call yourself, sir, the ballot papers don't have serial numbers. No, we don't need serial numbers. But how do you count ballot papers without serial numbers? Sir, there are two different ballot papers. Present the one you saw. So that is not election. This is just perfection of mischief that we call election in this country.
Comrade Sowore, I'm going to play a soundbite for you.
Okay.
And that is going to be the voice of the president, talking about petroleum prices and the hard decisions he's had to make. When we come back, you'd also comment on that, and then I would ask you again, you, just like we had on the 1st of August, there are also conversation around 1st of October in terms of the mother of all. I mean, there was the whole conversation around days of rage building up to the August, end bad governance protest. We're going to go into the 1st of October till whenever conversation, but I want to play this soundbite, and this is the voice of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, addressing the press from China after the very celebrated and colorful visit to China last week. Take a listen to what he has to say. In case you're just tuning in, thank you so much. I'm seeing your messages. I hope we can take all of these messages today. Comrade Omoyele Sowore is live in the studio with us, and we're looking at the issues of our own type of democracy. People have said, hey, we continue to move around circles because we decided to adopt the kind of democracy that is not working for us. Comrade Sowore is also going to get into that conversation. How do we develop or come up with our own solutions to our unique kind of problem? But listen to what the president has to say in respect to top decisions, petroleum price, and a few other stuff. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. Comrade Omoyele Sowore is still live with us in the studio. Comrade, you've heard that sound bite, and one thing that had been that you can link with this government is the issue of tough decisions, making sacrifices. And somebody said jokingly that each time they tell us to tighten our belt, it is because they don't wear belts, because they always wear babarigas and kaftan. That's just in a lighter mode. But leadership expects that you lead by example. So if you expect me to make a tough decision by understanding that, I'm going to move from 180 per liter to 1,300 naira per liter, I'll buy a bag of rice for 85,000, a tuber of yam cannot feed a family of 4, I should make such sacrifices. Where should he start from, Commissioner?
What I'm trying to find out, who are the people clapping in those meetings?
Well,
we need to know them. I'm serious. That's the only thing that was running through my mind. How do you clap at this brazen lie?
As the entourage of the president.
Okay, they walk around with their clappers.
You expect?
Well, is nothing. There's nothing we're saying here that the public don't understand already, and that is the fact that if you want people to really make sacrifices, then let's start paying our lawmakers minimum wage, 70,000. Let them be taking Uber to work, and see if there'll be anybody making laws who will show up for work the next day. Let's be paying our ministers. Let our ministers be riding public buses to work. And by the way, it is nothing egregious. The mayor of New York enters the train to work. I know of the mayor of my town. She rides a bike to work. So let's have that sacrifice go round. You're not going to ask some people to be making sacrifices.
Why living in luxury?
No. Why you are sacrificing them for dinner? That's what they are doing in Nigeria. The people of Nigeria are being sacrificed for dinner, lunch, and breakfast, and they are still being asked to make sacrifices. It's just unthinkable and unconscionable. Commissioner,
let's talk about your party, the AAC. I mean, off-cycle elections in this country is gradually becoming, or it has become, a part of us. Last year, after the general election in February and March, we had 3 off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa on the 11th of November. This weekend, there's going to be governorship election in Edo State, and by November, there will also be governorship election in Ondo State. Will your party, the AAC, be involved in this election? And how come majorly it's about the presidential election for you? And you'd also answer, if you get elected as president in 2027, would you sell the presidential jet?
Our party always participated in elections, including the off-season elections you're talking about. But what your answer should be to your question, are the off-season elections better than the elections that you and I have been talking about? In Kogi, can you, in good conscience, say there was an election last November? No. In Imo, where the elections were pre-written, even the Nigerian Labour Congress president tried to visit him, you saw what happened to him. how it was battered at those elections. So this weekend already, I'm sure you're on radio, you're in the media, just like myself. I'm no longer like directly in the media, but I'm a voracious consumer of media content. They're already talking about how the elections will be resolved. You know, the talks are all in place. The electoral officers are all in place. And they have anointed their candidates. And so you're going to get the same results as you've always had. But is the party participating? Of course, our party does have candidates in Ondo and Edo elections, and will participate as a party. But am I sitting down here under the illusion that our party
will win the election?
No, because again, we know nobody's planning an election in Edo and Ondo State. My Ondo State is, by the way, my home state.
Same with me.
Yes. So, you and I know the answer already. And that is why we're pushing the revolutionary message that for good people to get into office in Nigeria, Nigerians want to understand that there needs to be some kind of holistic overhaul of the system. Don't call it reform because Nigeria has passed the stage of reform. You can't reform the unreformable. That's where Nigeria is. The people who ask you to wait, they know why they are saying that you will wait until you grow old. And when it's time for them to pay your pension, you will not get paid. Because you have been waiting and waiting and waiting. We're even getting to a point where people will die and there won't be money to bury them. Now, that's why everybody has turned burials into fundraisers. Because not only do they have to bury the dead, they also have to raise some funds to keep those who are barely living alive. So whenever anybody is burying anybody now, it's not that they care about the person that died. It is a fund, it's a revenue generation process. My father has died, my mother has died. Some people are burying their father 3 times in 5 years. Not because those people who are being buried, some of them have never been bought a bed before when they're alive. I'm serious. But when they die, somebody wants to buy them the best coffin so that the world can see. Not the person who's in the coffin, but the coffin that was bought for them. You know, that's where our country is. And I'm not in any way, speaking down or talking down those who engage in these traditional rites of passage. But I'm just telling you, that's where we are economically. And these are some fundamental conversations that we must have with ourselves. Is that we want to continue this way or we don't want to? And not continuing this way includes talking about serious elections. So the reason why revolutions are respected all over the world is not because leaders themselves respect revolutionary outcomes. It is because if they don't, they risk another one. Yes, the revolution in France in 1789 became the center point of why you should not misbehave.
And that was basically because of bread.
And it's because, it wasn't because of bread, but bread was the point at which it happened. Interestingly, food is always the final trigger of a revolution. The French Revolution in 1789 had been brewing for 10 years before it happened. And don't forget, in 1889, the Bourbons, that is a traditional dynasty that was overthrown in France, tried to come back. The French people said no. Recently, it would interest you, the far right, that is the progenitors of the Bourbons, tried to take over France. And within a week, the revolutionary spirit in France said, don't allow these people to come back. They were routed because it's like a thick line on the sand. You don't cross it. And that's why we appreciate it. It's not because I don't have any other thing to do with my time or life. I've fairly been lucky. I've lived through some really tough times and, some fairly good times. I've seen good roads and I've seen some really bad roads. I've lived in light and I've lived in darkness. I've slept in mansions and I've slept in jail. I've had the extremes of life. But each time I look at it, I just can't deal with it. That simple things, as providing water, hot or cold, even if it is just cold water to be running on your floor, or that you can actually get to work, that the road the constructor can take you to your destination without killing you, or that you can walk into a hospital and the doctor is not prescribing death instead of health to you. That you can go to school and get education instead of ignorance. Because the school in Nigeria reinforces ignorance, and some of the most ignorant people, especially on social media,
are educated.
Students. Yes, they're educated people. And when they argue, you then have to be afraid of half knowledge. So, but they're not to blame. This was design of the decades of decadence that was visited upon Nigeria by these people. You know them, the usual suspects. But what is interesting is that even though I'm not religious, right? I always say karma. Because there's no one of them that stole all this money and really is
they don't
living.
end well.
They don't end well. They don't really live well, So one day, they're in a private jet. The next day, they're in the hospital. Another day, they are dealing with personal tragedies. It's not because, there's an American parable that says don't wish anybody dead because wish don't kill people. It's the same thing I say about people praying in Nigeria. Like prayers will kill Nigerian leaders. The most wicked ones will not be living to be 80 and 90. In fact, it has shown that the more wicked you are as a leader in Nigeria,
the longer you live.
The fellas 50 something, Ghana 60, good people. But the bad guys,
they're here
80. They might be crawling on their back. They'll be here. So your prayers that God should kill them don't work. Of course, prayers are directed at poor people. Anyway. All those die by fire prayers are like for people who have no fire engines.
The phone lines are really buzzing, and every of our feedback spaces are filled with messages. But before we go into that, very quickly, the conversation around revolution in this country, how workable is that? And this is what I'm going at. We have an election, however way you look at it, we have a calendar where maybe in 2023, 2027, 2031, there will be posters, there will be campaign. But we have a system where people vote based on different sentiment. Oh, is my religious person? Oh, is our turn? Is my tribal person? Oh, is the son of the landlord of my neighborhood that will benefit from that? How do you drive the conversation of revolution in the minds of people that already have predetermined reasons for making their political decisions? How possible is that, Comrade Sowore? You go on social media and you see people defending politicians based on different reasons, different yardsticks. Such people, how do you drive this revolution message in their minds when they probably don't see anything wrong in the system?
Well, I don't know if it is true that people don't see anything wrong in the system. You must appropriately categorize comments. And there are comments that are made by people who are paid to make comments. That's probably the most, most of the comments that you see that are well organized. There are comments that are made by people who are products of our system, ignorance. People who have primordial sentiments of ethnicity, of religion. But there are also comments of people who are not talking, who are not writing. And they are in the majority. They might look silent, but they are the kind of people we were talking about on August 1st. In August, nobody expected a protest to happen. But it happened in the most unusual places, northern Nigeria. When was the last time North rose up like that against the system and did so for 10 solid days? You remember, even in Jos that you're referring to, there was no violence in Jos.
It was peaceful. The older parts, Christians were praying.
Anchored by, is it Prophet
Buba?
There was nothing there, but because they were afraid, they had to introduce the curfew. Even in Kano, the protest that became violent was the one planned by the APC. In Zaria and Kaduna, the protesters were likely women. So wherever there was protests that became violent, it was because the state brought in their usual trademark or regular trademark, as Fela would like to call it, violence, and provoke people. That is where you saw violence happen. It is in places where they will not allow the legitimate leaders of the protest to lead protests due to police action, crackdown. You know, this last protest in August had an unusual thing that I would never have subscribed to, which was like we even went and met with the police on Zoom. The IG was meeting with our lawyers, Femi Falana and Adegboruwa, who agreed to represent in that instance. And they were asking for venues. It was provided to them. They asked for leaders, and we said the protest will not have leaders because it's already led by hunger
and bad
governance. Those are the leaders. They were asking who is funding it. Who says hunger? It's corruption. It's incompetence. It's insecurity. So, but they never expected August 1, and then August 2nd, and August 3rd. By August 4th, they were all shanking in their underwear. The man they said could not talk came and gave a speech, and people kept coming out. But they made a mistake, which is usually what is known as the ones, that popular saying that the ones the gods once destroy, they first make mad. They made a mistake of underrating Nigerians. Somebody advised them that, let's clamp down on these people. Maybe it will discourage more people. They will be shocked, And as I have said, the protests that will lead to the Nigeria's liberation may not have me around. That was what I said before I traveled. And I wasn't around on August 1. And it happened in ways that I never even imagined myself, that the protests of that nature without any organized leadership in that sense or any funding could last for 10 days. Do you know that even these protests, unlike NSAS, didn't have any celebrity endorsements? So all the celebrities stayed away from it. And I don't have a problem with that. But it's just to show to you that it was very organic. There was nobody that you said, it is because they sang about it or they tweeted about it.
Let me hold your thoughts here. If we've had leaders on this protest, do you think the looting we saw in Kano, the killings and all of those destructions, do you think it could have been avoided?
No, it was the leaders. They were leaders, and the leaders led very well. You have to appropriately put the killings and destruction where it belongs. It's the police. It was the security agencies that did the killing. In Kano, on a Saturday after August 1, you remember how people were carrying leaves. What is leaves symbolic of? Peace. And you saw how the police drove an armored tank into them, started beating them, and killed people. That was captured on tape. So why are we playing on the emotion of, there was violence? In the UK, after this August protest, was there no protest in the UK where people were looting? Yes. But I'm not in any way endorsing looting. I'm just telling you that protests can take all forms of, even in the most advanced societies. But this was never a violent protest. It was made violent by the reaction of the state. When our lawyers and our group met with the IG, what did the IG tell them? The only thing I can show you is of peace or support is if you cancel the protest. Otherwise, we don't have people who can help you. We applied to the minister of the Federal Capital Territory
to allow
us to use the Eagle Square. What did he do? He went and brought in a judge to give a ruling that we cannot use Eagle Square, that we should use the stadium. People went to the stadium, they brought police, DSS, and thought to beat them up, including journalists, your colleagues. They were all beaten. In Lagos, the Lagos state government went and got the kangaroo judgment that we should restrict the movement. Even at Ojota, they still went there with area boys and beat up journalists, captured on tape. So who brought violence into the protest? Is it the protesters? Is it the protesters that were killing themselves or beating themselves, or the government? So because when these narratives are being fashioned like this, it presupposes that these are just some violent people who are out to destroy the country. And we understand the game. They put this narrative this way so that they can do the stupid charges they do with charging 10 people with treason. Because what typically the charges said is that you were protesting and you carried placards to overthrow the government. Isn't that ridiculous? Completely. Especially coming from people whose stock in trade was protest to power. Senator Shehu Sani went to a dinner with Tinubu, and he said it openly. They said, Mr. President, you used to sponsor us to protest. Please release NSAS protesters. They did deny it. So had it been that he was accused of treason at that time, and they were able to hang treason on his neck, would he be president today? As a matter of fact, Tinubu was accused of treason in 1994. Accused of trying to bomb Ejigbo depot. That was the reason he ran away to the US on exile. And he went and started doing exile politics. That was their own first protest to power. When the military was driven out by us, as students, they came back and took over power. Now they are using the power to suppress the culture of protest. You see hypocrisy in black and white?
Comrade Sowore, we have loads of people that want to talk to you. And I would also invite you to join the conversation. And if you're just tuning in, I must admit that you've missed a lot, but you can go back on our social media spaces, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on X, formerly Twitter. You find these recording there. You can watch it all over again. But I will invite you to join the conversation. 0913-600-0410. Comrade Omoyele Sowore was the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in 2019 and 2023 presidential election, also the convener of the Take It Back movement. So we're having a conversation around strengthening our democracy, even though he thinks what we have is not exactly democracy for him. As long as we still have the culture of election from 1999 to 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 1923. That's how it goes. So you can join us, but please let's make it really brief. Just your name and straight to the point, so that we can take as much calls and as much messages as we can also read. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
You're welcome.
This is Olaiwola from Nigeria.
Mr. Olaiwola, straight up.
So, yeah, the issue now, I want to question Sowore. My question is going to indirectly. We are talking about as you are a journalist. There is a code of ethics that govern you as a journalist there. And we are seeing people that we are looking onto to lead this country, but they are using effort in a society where we see that it's too volatile to manage as a nation. Now, you are switching to protest in the August 1st, and you say a day of rage. Is it not a violence against the society that you want to govern as a president, the nearest future? Number one. And second part of it, people that are creating the protest that have not even studied the program that attached to it. No any of your children or your family, as immediately your son or your wife, living within Nigeria, because you people have a motive to set the nation on fire.
Okay, Mr. Olaiwola, I've told you let's try and be as civil as we can be with our comments. We're not setting the nation on fire. We're asking the right questions. This is Ade from Lagos, and it says, I want to ask, are we in a democracy or we are in an autocracy or imperialism or feudalism where innocent people are being picked up because they spoke against bad governance or policies that have turned the people to beggars in the midst of plenty, that has turned a secured country into a gangster paradise and create an economic disaster under 1 year and a few months? From journalists to human rights activists, the government has been fighting for legitimacy. It's a shame that the worst of us is ruling the best of us. Thank you for your message. Adeyemi Kamaru from Satellite Town says, how can you tag a so-called peaceful protest as days of rage and then you're surprised when there's violence and death? The meaning of rage is violence, uncontrollable anger, looting, vandalism, and destruction of public infrastructures. That was deliberate. This is why they premeditated tag the protest as days of rage. You cannot express rage peacefully. Okay. What sensible thing, as the president said in the soundbite you played? Is it clear that the Dangote refinery is just an extension of the failed and leprous NNPC Limited? It's okay. The real deal is about the oil palaver is getting clearer. Confusion and insincerity is loading. The so-called NNPC Limited is an arm twisting of Dangote and is afraid of saying the truth about this ideal thing. We should start by asking them if the same Dangote fraud they said is of low quality supply to the NNPC, or have the quality changed all of a sudden? Dude, The days ahead looks gloomy. Let everyone who is serious be ready to hit the streets. That is Steve from Ijaniki. Good evening, Mr. Joshua.
Bro, good evening.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Comrade, I greet you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah, this is Gege Joshua calling from Ebutimeta.
Nice hearing from you, man.
Yeah, as much as I appreciate the good work you've been doing, I think it's impossible because let's take your party for example. How many people are aware of the logo of your party? Talking about how electoral education, how many people, even me personally, if the logo of your party appear on the screen, I may not be able to say this is the logo of the party of Comrade Sowore. What are you doing in?
Mr. Gege Joshua, I would appreciate if you can call back on Facebook. Woody Austin says, honestly, it gives Tinubu and this government joy and happiness whenever they see the Naira crash and pump price of petrol go up. They celebrate it as high achievements. Anything dollar gains and petrol price highs, they are happier, and the masses are suffering due to their policies. The more the masses suffer, the more they think their policies are achieving desired results. To them, all their policies must inflict pain on Nigeria. Anything Tinubu touches, boom, it's hardship. Okay, that's a lengthy one there. Abdurrafiu Alabalakwe says, I salute Comrade Omoyele Sowore there. I am Alabalakwe from Sabo Jibo. In as much as I'm not in support of what Sowore does sometimes, or the way he talks sometimes, being arrested, but arresting him by the DSS is misplaced priority. Look, all of this strength using by the military agencies to pursue and arrest Sowore, Nigeria and others should have been diverted towards searching and arresting kidnappers, bandits and Boko Haram. Okay, I want to beg the president to consider how he became president, and please listen to the ordinary people. Ordinary people like Sowore, they are fighting for a just cause, and it is because they want the president to succeed by taking this noble country to a better place. Chooks Ine on Facebook says, nice one. I've escalated the interview. Okay, thank you. This one says, Atonaka Samuel, the real truth about Sowore is that he doesn't know where he belongs in politics and political structure. What structure understanding does he have from world, local, state, and national terrain? Politics and political party is not a student union government where you gain power with the backing of powerful. Okay. Babatunde Glorious Omoni, he says, I greet you all. I pray the country will work. If God's still on the throne, the president and the team will not find it easy, and this government will be come on, guys, let's be civil. Let me switch over to the calls. Hello, good evening, Mickey Weze.
Good evening, Alpha.
You're welcome.
Comrade Sowore, I agree to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they are shocked that you are around, because before now they were telling us that Sowore is here and abroad and pushing people out to go and die. You should come back to Nigeria. Now you are in Nigeria, they are asking for your children. The truth of the matter is that those who want to believe what they want to believe, those who want to be docile can remain so. But the rest of us Nigerians who understand that we can never continue this way. The same people that benefited from free education, now they are making it impossible for our children to go to school. And then we'll stay here and be saying all sorts. And they allow them having their way. Their children will come back tomorrow again and take over. So why our own children cannot go to school? That is what they want. So and then so I want to ask, is it possible that the protest will be maybe designated to National Assembly, just close down the National Assembly, close down State Assembly, and then I think that would be more impactful.
Mickey Weze. Thank you very much for that contribution. This one says Ayonleke Khan Kazim says, well done. Thumbs up, Comrade Sowore. You hit the nail on the head. Our leaders should lead by example. Senators should be paid minimum wage. They should take public transport, queue for fuel, and spend from their pocket on food and other needs and so on, just like we ordinary Nigerians are doing. Thank you very much. Comrade Ezekiel Adewumi says, good evening, comrade. The reason why we keep having bad people in governance is because of the masses. It is poor masses that will leave a credible candidate and decide to go for are unfit candidate because of 2K given to them on election days. Okay. Please allow me to comment on the soundbite by the president while he was in China. Mr. President, with all due respect to you and your office as a president, drop your hard decisions because it is killing Nigerians. I personally subject that the only hard decision you should take now should be to either build the country's new refinery or make the old ones work in order to keep the country, Nigeria, and Nigerians alive. God bless you. God bless you too. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome
good
to
evening.
Milan FM. I'm good. Your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Malam Salah. I'm calling from Alagba.
Malam Salah, let's make it quick.
I want to ask the comrade. I'm on his 515 demand. It's Nnamdi release of Nnamdi Kanu. I don't know how Nnamdi Kanu connected to that hunger and bad governance. Because as you speak today, okay, IPOB stand as a proscribed people as terrorist organization by US, by United Nations, even by UK. Fine, and this is a leader that a lot of people were killed under him, under his instruction and command. Evidence are there. Okay, so you are now asking someone to this. As we speak, Nigerian army cannot give you exact numbers of Nigerian soldiers that were killed in Saudi. Nigerian police exactly. Even people have lost, refuse them to go for their digital business. And you are telling me that this person should be released. And you are starting this into a bad governance and hunger. How can I trust you, sir? How can I know that you are welcome, sir?
Thank you very much, Malam Salah. Good evening, Honorable Sowore. Can we still have people-oriented constitution? How can we resurrect this country? Where are we going now? May God help us. That's Matthew from Bariga. Okay, more messages. First off, from Ikorodu says, God bless Sowore. I follow him on social media and I see all he does. But politics should be a thing of consistency, and that is where this current political class are failing Nigerians. Sowore has been here and he should be allowed to have a voice and have a lead. Okay, I guess that message is not complete. I'd appreciate if you can send a complete one. Okay, that's first off from Ikorodu. Femi from Egbeda says, God bless your guest. I didn't know it was Sowore initially, but I joined the conversation late. Thank you for bringing thought-provoking guests like this to speak to the minds of Nigerians. And God bless Milan FM also. But I have a question for Sowore. Why should he not start from governorship election to see if his party can gain ground? Okay, thank you very much, Femi from Ikorodu. More calls. Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Kambelina.
Okay, Mr. Kambelina, straight to the point. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Great your comrade.
Good evening.
I see you see the all the people that are attacking your guests. I don't know whether they are buying their own phone in a different station. I don't know. Somebody is talking something that is telling Nigerians. I will go attacking him. But look at the woman, they go small down in their house. The thunder. It is so, it will take in Nigerians, we are our own problem. We are finding the person that is killing you. That's too bad. It's a shame. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Okangwelin. I will allow my guests to respond, but let me also still squeeze in a couple of more messages. Oof, keep coming. I don't know how I want to do this, but let me try and pick as much as I can. Kamaru Adeyemi from Satellite Town says, it is injustice for anybody to blame this administration for the economic hardship. For 8 years, we're living on a fact lifestyle with huge debt from foreign and domestic debt because the central bank continues to print money and the Naira continues to depreciate. There's too much Naira in circulation. Everything in Nigeria in the last 8 years is done on debt. No country would survive in that economic policy. Okay? People should endure the hardship, and those who have the means to help the turn down should do so. Interesting. Thank you very much, Kamaru from Satellite Town. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Straight to the point, your name and where you're calling from?
Damlola from Malaba.
Damlola.
Yes, I greet Commissioner Sowore.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, my brother. I cannot really be surprised the way people are attacking him. This Nigeria, we have gone far in deception, in delusions. Now, someone actually telling us, no, see, until all of us be like Commissioner Sowore, Nigeria might not stand, honestly. See, we are in a dynasty whereby our coming generations, are meant to serve as slaves. And that is the only reality. If all of us wake up to the reality of this country, nothing will move. But my question for comrade this evening is this ignominious and derogatory game between NFP and Dangote. Where are we going? Who is fooling who here? Are we in a cage or are we really progressing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Say apologies. I need to allow my guests respond to all of these conversations. We can't pick calls again, Comrade Sowore. If we spend 4 hours on this conversation, I can assure you that the calls will just keep pouring in. You've listened to a couple of the questions asked. You want to respond to a few of them? We're really pressed for time.
Well, I will respond to the one about Nnamdi Kanu, which I think requires response. And my position is that it's only those who don't know what they are doing who keeps doing the same thing over again and expecting
a different result.
I understand sometimes that some of our brothers in the northern parts of the country have been saturated with this fear that Nnamdi Kanu is actually anti-Nigeria. And for them, Nigeria is sacrosanct. You can't touch it. You can't break it. So anybody who says Nigeria must address this unity becomes automatically an enemy of the state. But what you must understand is that Nigeria is a country that was put together by colonialists. In fact, it was put together as a business in 1901 by one Sir Gordon, who set up a Niger company, which then became Nigeria. And in 1914, they forcefully put Nigeria together. And Nigeria never had a chance to become a nation. It remains a country because of the way it was put together. And that's why I always say that Nigeria has two major issues. One of it is foundational, and the other one is institutional problems. So Nnamdi Kanu is the one who is saying, look, let my people go. We're tired of this place. But, I say it constantly. Is there anybody who is not tired of Nigeria? You can, if you want to know how much even our brother from the north likes Nigeria, bring a ship or airplane that can take people
free.
Nobody will
without passport.
There will be people who will hang on to the tire of the plane.
There will be stowaways.
So what I'm saying is the same knot where you say Kanu was killed by soldiers is forgiving Boko Haram commanders. I was detained, across from Boko Haram commanders at the DSS in 2019. They had a full bouquet of DSTV. They were bringing their wives to them there. They will impregnate the wife, they will go and have children, they will bring them back when they are ready. In fact, one of them told me that he impregnated somebody, the person did not have good behavior, they had to marry another one from me. I said, how did you know? You are in prison. How did you know? So I'm just telling you how this hypocrisy divides us. But what you will also understand is that if you don't solve the foundational questions, more of Nnamdi Kanu's will come your way. Nnamdi Kanu started by preaching for negotiation. They asked for a referendum. It was peaceful. You say you don't want him. Then now you have to deal with the Eastern. You have Nnamdi Kanu in prison, but you are dealing with a security crisis in the southwest, in the southeast. But you had a Kaduna governor who told you that there are only 36 policemen in a local government. You drafted your soldiers away from there, and you go and put them in the southeast. There's almost a military checkpoint in the southeast every kilometer. But in the northeast or the northwest, where there is banditry, you have 36 policemen, 5 guns working. Kanu is your problem. I was saying that if you release Kanu, you have a chance to refresh. I went to the shrine yesterday, and Femi Kuti was saying something which I really enjoyed. He said, any Nigerian leader that comes now should first of all apologize on behalf of himself and the former leaders. That we are sorry for what we did to you. And that's what we should do about the southeastern part of Nigeria. You killed 3-4 million people in the 70s, late 60s and 70s. You are still killing them, and you want them to keep quiet and just accept that Nigeria's unity is untouchable. And the same Nigeria, people are migrating in what they call Japa to form their own country abroad. But you want to kill the guy who says, can we have a conversation about whether we should stay together
or we should go
or not? And then you have Boko Haram commanders who are recruited into the army after you said they have been de-radicalized. Nigeria.
Robert Patrick says, I watched you live on TikTok yesterday when you were being arrested. We shall be free from this type of democracy one day. Comrade Sowore, thank you so much for being my guest on the show today. And big shout out to everyone that made this program a success. Thank you once again, Joseph Shaw, for the link up. Once again, comrade, we wish you the very best of everything as we continue to make progress.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks to all of you. And I want to say, nobody should blame anybody for saying what they had to say. It is the life I've lived my entire career to promote free speech. Those that are for me and against me are all welcome. That's the future we need.
Thank you very much. Once again, it's Mainland 98.3 FM, and it's been the Situation Room. My guest had been Comrade Omoyele Sowore, the 2019 and 2023 presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, and he's been my guest on the show today.
Nigeria, they use computer. The leaders of Nigeria, they use radio where they turn the knob.